So what's going on with the Brazilian national football team? Where have they been so poor the last several years? I would say like the last 10 years to be exact. Um, and I get this question a lot from friends I play with, from kids I coach, kids I train, and it's hard to understand, why there's been such a drastic decline. Well, today, what I want to do for you is I'm going to put together a few clips from Brazil, from journalists in Brazil, pundits, and as well as ex-players. I'm going to put these together so you can watch and hear what they're saying. We'll analyze it there at the end. And also, stay tuned because at the end, I'm going to have a special surprise about an older World Cup winning player, a very famous guy. So you're going to want to stay tuned. Like and subscribe because this is going to be a series. We have a lot to talk about it, so let's get going. Let's get to the first clip.
Porque foi difícil, hein, ficar de pé durante esse jogo da seleção brasileira, principalmente no primeiro tempo, hein, Tomás? Olha, então, quer dizer, 2 anos depois de uma Copa do Mundo meio modorrenta da seleção brasileira, o Brasil teve um monte de técnicos, ficou naquela espera do Ancelotti, tanta coisa aconteceu e a impressão que a gente tem é que nada aconteceu. Né? As coisas vão mudando, foram mudando e tal, mas continua sendo uma seleção que não inspira confiança.
Esse caminha para ser um ciclo pior do que o ciclo passado, bem pior do que o ciclo entre 2014 e 2018, que começa muito mal, mas tem aquela recuperação com a chegada do Tite. Ciclos bons nem sempre significaram boas Copas.
O ciclo antes de 2002 foi um tumulto só, né?
Sim, foi.
Leão,
Terrível. Até o Candinho pegou um jogo ali, 1 ou 2.
Luxemburgo demitido. Candinho, como você disse, tampou ali nos jogos contra Bolívia e Venezuela. Aí chega o Leão, a seleção do Leomar. Pega o Filipão. Perde a Copa América de Honduras.
Não, e perde tudo quanto é jogo no início no início da trajetória do Filipão nas eliminatórias.
Rompe com o Romário.
So let's break this down, what they're talking about. First off, they're discussing the final game of 2024 against Uruguay and Brazil for World Cup qualifying. It was a 1-1 tie. It was a pretty slouchy and crappy game. It was hard to watch. It was hard to stand up and cheer. And then they went on to talk about, hey, there's been other campaigns, other years where Brazil had difficulty qualifying. Even the 2002 World Cup winning Brazil team, they hardly qualified as well. They had a lot of difficulty. In 1994, they had a lot of problems qualifying as well. Romário had to come in and score 2 goals in the final World Cup qualifying game to advance them to World Cup. And so there's a lot going on. So let's hear what else they have to say. Let's get back to the clip.
Eu acho que a falta de rumo e de esperança marcam muito esse ciclo da seleção brasileira. E eu não estou aqui querendo criticar o Dorival, nem o Fernando Diniz e nem os jogadores. Eu acho que é um conjunto de coisas que passa por uma presidência, por uma CBF muito preocupada com política, por um presidente inseguro e que, consequentemente, tenta o tempo inteiro dar golpes de autoridade para afirmar a sua autoridade, né? Um futebol brasileiro que está nas mãos dos clubes, mas que não conseguem ter todo o poder, então você tem uma luta por poder ali, você tem jogadores que não têm o protagonismo de outrora lá no futebol europeu, ainda que sejam bons jogadores, e você tem um público desconectado, e eu acho que a prova cabal disso é o estádio hoje. Estádio vazio.
So here they're talking about how the seleção, there's very little direction and very little hope. The cohesiveness is not there whatsoever. I think all of that is hurting the play, but as well as the other things, like the CBF president, the federation president, where he has this kind of inferiority complex where he tries to show that he's the most powerful, he's the man in charge, and he does all these kind of political things. And then I'll go into that a little bit later. But then we have players on the seleção who we have really good players, but they're not they're not the lead character, they're not the lead player on their teams in Europe. There is Vini Jr. He kind of shares that responsibility with other players on Real Madrid, but Vini is doesn't play very well for the selection team, for the Seleção, and so maybe it's not fair for us to have these huge expectations for him to play like a Neymar or play like a Ronaldinho Gaúcho or play like R9 or maybe it's not fair. However, it is proper to have these expectations so that he plays better. If he wants to be Ballon d'Or and all this, he needs to play better for the Brazilian national team. There's absolutely no doubt about that in my mind. But let's get into the next clip. The next clip's really good. They go in further into the issues of the Seleção. They're pretty charismatic in their display and their insatisfaction of everything that's going on. So, if anything, it's going to be fun. So, here we go. Let's watch it.
Porque não dá mais para ligar para a seleção brasileira. Não dá mais para assistir com vontade os jogos da seleção brasileira. E a prova disso foi a Fonte Nova no dia de hoje, com um público patético, para ver um futebol ridículo da seleção brasileira que todos nós já esperávamos. Eu falo isso todo dia. Todo dia, antes de jogo da seleção brasileira, eu falo. O que você espera, pilhado? Jogo ruim, jogo de dar sono, seleção brasileira sem mostrar o futebol que o torcedor brasileiro quer ver. E tá provado. Hoje ficou provado que o público, o povo brasileiro, tá cagando para a seleção brasileira. A Fonte Nova vazia. Por quê? Porque a mesma coisa que você botar um show de uma banda vagabunda, você pega uma banda vagabunda, que tem música horrorosa, e aí você vai fazer um show. E aí você cobra pro show dessa banda uma fortuna no ingresso. Eu te pergunto, quem vai pagar para assistir a um show vagabundo, a um show fajuto, uma fortuna?
All right, so that was great. So his animation and dissatisfaction about the Seleção, I think it rings true in like how we all feel. It's he's displaying how we would want to. If we were at a bar talking to some friends, he said some stuff probably we would all say. So it was really funny hearing that. And it's true. The stadium was empty. It was extremely expensive. One of those power plays by that CBF president, Ednaldo. And so that's one thing that he did. He raised the prices and people don't go. And why would they go? You're not watching a Ronaldinho Gaúcho. You're not watching a Neymar. You're watching a team that's playing mediocre. And so this is what we get, right? So let's get to the next clip. Which is pretty good. They go a little bit more in depth into the CBF, and this is going to be interesting here.
E tem mais. É uma tecla na qual eu também bato sempre. Ah, vai trazer um treinador estrangeiro? É a principal seleção do mundo. Seleção pentacampeã é a maior marca de seleção do mundo, a seleção brasileira. Então, em tese, é um negócio muito atraente. Porra, você treinar o Brasil, irmão. Realmente. Só que o cara, antes de aceitar, ele dá uma ligada, ele dá uma pesquisada, ele manda um zap pra galera pra tentar saber, escuta, como é que é esse negócio aí? Aí o cara vai descobrir como é que a gente respeita a data FIFA aqui, como é que é o nosso calendário aqui, vai descobrir que o Ednaldo tá querendo fazer economia, racionamento de gelo.
Que ele tá negociando pra ficar até 2034.
Que ele tá dando uma manobra dos bastidores pra ficar mais 10 anos no poder, que a seleção foi eliminada da Copa América e ficou um dia a mais nos Estados Unidos porque não tinha logística pronta para volta, não tinha passagem para voltar dos Estados Unidos. O cara vai falar, tô fora, irmão. Aí, é para isso aí que eu vou? Desculpa, eu fico aqui mesmo.
So here they're discussing bringing on a manager from overseas, like a foreign manager to manage the Seleção, like a Pep Guardiola, Carlo Ancelotti, something like that. But they bring up a good point. Let's say we invite a foreign manager to come here. They're going to do their research. They're going to talk to friends and probably past Brazilian players they've managed, and then they're going to see that Ednaldo Rodrigues, the current CBF president, the Brazilian of the Brazilian Federation is doing these power plays and these backdoor deals to stay in power for another 10 years until 2034. And then you start thinking, oh man, that's not cool. And then you start, then you hear about the Brazilian National League, how they don't respect the FIFA dates. So like a FIFA date, a FIFA date is, let me explain that. That's like, when England or Mexico or the USA, when they're playing, their national teams are playing, the leagues in the USA, the Premier League, La Liga in Spain, Serie A, they stop for like 10 days. In Brazil, they semi-stop. What they do is they push those weekend games to the middle of the week. So if the end of the FIFA date is like on a Tuesday, then Wednesday, the league already begins. So if you're a national team coach of the Seleção and you want to try a player from the Brazilian league, it makes it very difficult, because they're going to play, let's say, on a Wednesday, and then they're going to play the following weekend. So because they're making up that one game on a Wednesday, and so they don't really follow. They say they follow it, but they don't. They're just overloading the player. And then you find out about what they're doing logistically. Brazil during Copa America, they didn't have flights home, so they had to stay an extra day in the United States because someone mismanaged all the flights, and so five-time world champions, probably the national team, the Seleção, who has probably the most notoriety and a lot more people follow it and want them to win, and it's that unorganized. So it's hard to bring on a Pep Guardiola or a Carlo Ancelotti and expect them to want to be in this complete disorder, But now let's get to the next clip, which is the main reason we're here today. I would think is who's going to be the next CBF president? Well, let's see. Is it going to be a former player? All right, let's get to it.
Ronaldo numa nova empreitada. Tentar ser presidente da Confederação Brasileira de Futebol.
Eu tenho certeza que vou conseguir os apoios que eu preciso para ser presidente da CBF. Então isso me motiva demais, sentir as pessoas pedindo ajuda, me motiva para realmente entrar de cabeça nesse projeto e continuar devolvendo ao futebol tudo aquilo que me proporcionou.
R9, all right, El Fenomeno, Ronaldo, the original, the real one. Yeah, I mean, so this is exciting for me. I feel like the gods of football has blessed Ronaldo with speed, ability, agility, force, wisdom in the sport. And I just feel like he would just be a wonderful president of the CBF. So let's go on and hear why he wants to be president. All right, let's go to the next clip.
A gente perdeu isso, tem muitos problemas na indústria do futebol. Eu acho que eu estou capacitado para unir a população novamente e trazer a força que a seleção brasileira precisa, o respeito que a seleção brasileira precisa. E esse anúncio foi muito bom e eu estou ainda processando as respostas das pessoas. Eu tive ligações presidente
Do
de
mundo,
clube,
né?
de presidente de federação,
Porque
ex-jogadores, todo mundo querendo realmente, todo mundo pedindo ajuda pra gente resgatar.
não, se a gente pudesse votar, né? Se nós, povo, pudéssemos votar, né?
já tava lá.
So, what's the reason R9, Ronaldo, Fenomeno wants to become the president of the Brazilian Federation? Well, he pretty much said it clearly. Like, he wants to rescue football in Brazil. He wants to bring back the confidence, bring back the respect that Brazil had throughout the world, and elevate the leagues and the players and the managers from a global, in a global manner. And maybe I feel like he has the capacity to do that. He has the playing experience. He's been in business for a while. You know, he's not a lifelong bureaucrat, businessman, politician. He's someone who already has that confidence and wisdom and worldly wisdom. You know, he's worked and played all over the world. You know, I think for being a leader, sometimes you have to be, you know, very stern. You have to be confident. Most of all, you have to know how to have critical thinking skills, right, and make the proper decisions. Ednaldo Rodrigues, the current CBF, is just in this constant power play struggle with like charismatic leadership, wisdom. He did some of the major flaws that he's done is obviously the ticket prices that went up. How would you do that on like the end of the year, during the end of the year where everyone's like off for vacation, everyone's saved up money all year for like parties, and then you're going to raise prices to like 600 reais. Minimum wage is 1,400 reais in Brazil, so it's like half of a month's salary just to go watch the Seleção. The stadium was completely empty. That's ridiculous. Ednaldo Rodrigues did a handshake deal with Carlo Ancelotti, the Real Madrid manager, to become the manager of the Seleção. And then for a whole year and a half, we had interim managers come in. We had Ramon, we had Fernando Diniz, and we didn't, it was just poorly managed, and it was a handshake deal. Nothing was written on paper. There was no contracts. And then after a year and so, a few months, Carlo Ancelotti said, "Hey, wait, I don't want to be part of the CBF or the Seleção." We've all been in situations where we would have an Ednaldo Rodrigues sort of character who's a lifelong person who's been behind a desk, never really applied anything, become a leader suddenly, and then transform the business. They're supposed to uplift the business, and 2 years later, 3 years later, there's layoffs everywhere. We're going through a lot of that right now in corporate America. So it's time to get straight to the point, find someone who's actually applied and actually worked in the industry from a ground foundational level, and kind of knows the ins and outs, and it's just not there to do power plays and everything else. So I'm happy R9 is doing this. I think he has the capacity to do it. I really want to hear what y'all have to say, what you think. Put some comments in the bottom. I would love, English, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, whatever you feel. I'd love to hear from you. Like and subscribe. I'm going to do several more of these videos about the CBF, about the Seleção, about Vini Jr., about some other players. So there's a lot to come. Hopefully you enjoyed this. So talk to you soon. Let's go Ronaldo.